Welcome to another episode of Unscripted with Marilyn Morales. Today is a curly hair, I don't care day. Okay, guys. My guest today is somebody that I met when I started to write my own book. You guys know today's episode is brought to you by Izzy's Legacy. Visit izzyslegacyinc.org. Learn all about how you can save a life in life and how you can help support a family in a cancer journey. Well, she is the person who was the project manager to help me write my book. And it was a difficult process for me. And she made it so much easier. Not because I didn't know how to write, right? Because I did. I am able to write a story, but I was writing it from a nurse's perspective. I was writing it a little differently, and she had to show me how to add some color, how to add some life to that. So I am truly indebted to my next guest, and her name is Giselle Quintanilla, for helping me through that entire process. And in addition to that, being the person who translated my book into Espanol. So let me tell you all about her. She is a 5-time published author, speaker, business strategy partner, and CEO of Ready Writer Services LLC, which offers writing, editing, Spanish translation, self-publishing, book branding, and marketing services. That's a lot. That's a lot. She has been featured in both Called to Inspire, Top 50 Empowered Women, Empowering Women, and Growth Women's Business Network magazine. I didn't know that, Giselle. We got to talk about that. Giselle works with writers and authors to share their stories in books and ebooks, and she works with women entrepreneurs to develop effective business strategies. Currently, Giselle's mission is to help women entrepreneurs get unstuck from emotional pain in relationships and heal so they can unleash their purpose and maximize their income potential. Follow her on social media at, I'm going to let her tell us how to get a hold of her. Let us welcome Giselle to the show. Hello.
Hello. Oh my goodness. I thank you so much I love this. I love this platform. I'm so grateful for you. You know how like you hear something and you're like, who are they talking about? Who are they talking about? Right? Like you don't even realize, oh, who is that? That is me. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Listen, you're welcome. And thank you for being on here. You know, when you write your bio, when you're writing it, right? And when somebody reads it back to you, it's a whole different thing. It happens to me every single time. That's me.
Right.
Yeah, you don't realize how much you actually do in a day, you know, how in a lifetime, right? And we're still not done yet.
And we're
By
not.
by the time it's the end and we're called home, our bio is going to be twice as big.
And I just want to be empty, right? I want to leave this earth empty, back in God to be like, you, good job, right? Good job.
Good job. Good job. You have graduated, put your tassel on the other side and walk through. Yeah, listen, one of the things that I remember thinking when I was writing my book and you were helping me with that. And I asked you, where's your book? Right? Which book have you written? And you were like, not yet. I was like, you're helping everybody else.
Yeah. That's that. And that was really what's funny is you're saying 5-time published author, because I do have 4 other books, but I'm very behind the scenes, right? I'm very like, let me help everybody else. And what's interesting is up until last year, that I really was very, who can I help? You know, I want to help people tell a story like your story. I love your story. I love your book. You know that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
And it really, but really took God sitting me down and saying, it's time. Like, you got to tell your story now. Now it's your turn. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for, just stepping out and being obedient.
Listen, obedience is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Because with obedience, that doesn't mean there's understanding.
Right. You're right.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Cause so I could say a mouthful about obedience and without understanding, right? I think that a lot of times God will give us instruction, but he won't show us the whole picture, right? Or he won't tell us everything. He won't give us the full understanding. We're always on a need to know basis, right? And I appreciate that though, because I think that if he told some of us, if he told us the whole thing, gave us the whole picture, we would probably forfeit. We'd probably be like, no, I'm good. I'm okay right here.
Doing that.
Yeah, I ain't doing all that. Who, me? I ain't doing all that, right? And even when I was, about my book, when I was going through what I was going through during the pandemic, I still didn't really have a full picture. I didn't have a full understanding of why and what was happening, what was going on. But I knew that I had to go through it differently than, because it's marriage, separation, and divorce. And I knew I had to go through it differently than what my parents did, when they got separated. And so I didn't quite understand why. Now seeing the other side and seeing how he's come through, and then writing the book and seeing people, say, hey, your book, oh my gosh, this, sending messages, I'm getting understanding of where the journey is taking me now, but still not really what's the destination?
Yeah. The full picture. I don't think we're ever going to see the full picture, because every step is taking us to a different level. Right. And yeah, we're not going to understand it, but because that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Not understanding and walking in faith is part of the process. Right.
Yep.
It's being able to move forward without knowing, is there solid ground?
Right. It's part of trusting him. It's part of trusting him, because if we knew everything, but if somebody guaranteed you, if they said, when you wrote the book, listen, when you wrote this book, you're going to have a nonprofit, you're going to network, you're going to meet these people, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to have this merch, you're going to have all this. If somebody had told you that, it's like a guarantee, right? So you're almost like, oh, okay. And you have this, you run this risk of almost taking it for granted. Right. And I think that with God, he really, it's a trust thing. It's a, I don't want you to know everything, because I need you to trust me. If we knew everything from the bat, we'd either not do it, or we would be like, all right, this is easy. Right. But I think that the trusting piece is really key for our walk and where he wants to take us, and knowing him, because that's the most important part. Forget what he does for us, and let's think about just knowing him, knowing his character, knowing who he is in our lives. And I think that's the part that I appreciate the most. It's not easy, but I do appreciate how, he loves us so much that he'll give us a little bit and allow us to have that trust and bond with him.
Right. And allow us to have decision. Another thing that I've recently understood, and it hit me different this year, is that our journey is not just about us. And the things that he asks us to do are because we are part of someone else's journey as well. So whatever he's asked them to do, he's asked us to do. And if we don't do our part, they don't get to finish theirs.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so real.
And that hit me different when I heard that. So it was one of the meetings I was on with Ladies of Leadership. And I think you heard me talk about this, right? Where they were talking about the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
And I was off camera and eating, and God knows what I was doing. But somebody was talking about the sin of sloth and giving a definition of that. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Like what? Right. I never envisioned the definition of that sin as a sin of omission, as a sin as if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Who are you hurting?
Yeah.
Are you potentially not saving a life? Yeah. Did I potentially not help somebody else who I was supposed to along that way meet their goals?
Right.
Or did I delay their goals because I didn't answer the call?
Yeah. It's like knowing something, right? So knowing, let's just say, it's like knowing the cure to an illness and not sharing it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's serious. Like that might be, somebody might be here like, oh, that's deep, but that's real.
It's
like
real.
You not fulfilling the purpose on your life, the call on your life, right? affects other people. And it is the same thing as you knowing the cure to something and not sharing it and keeping it to yourself. And now somebody else doesn't get healed or doesn't get cured because you were selfish or because you didn't think you could do something. Because, you know, you didn't trust, because you just didn't trust. That's why I wrote the book. This is why I wrote my book.
Go ahead. Why'd you write the book? Go ahead, tell us.
I wrote the pain plan because that was the plan that I had to go through. I literally had to walk through healing from emotional pain. Everything I endured in my marriage, through my separation, and after divorce, I had to walk this out, and it was uncomfortable, and I hated every moment of it, and it was painful, but I had to do the work because I have to show up healed, right? And so I had to do the work to show up healed for my kids. But then I'm like, I can't keep this to myself. And I started seeing so many women hurting from relationships that, you know, broke their heart, didn't work, they're stuck, you know, they're out here being spiteful, being bitter, being angry, being miserable, not living their full life, not fulfilling their potential because you're still hurt.
Because you're stuck.
Right, because you're stuck. And there was no way, Marine, there was no way that I couldn't not share that. Like I couldn't not share, this is what I had to do. This is what I went through. This is the work I had to do. And guess what? That work, it's not just for me. God didn't give me this plan just for me. So why not share it with you if I know that it's going to help you walk in your purpose and just live the abundant life?
That's right. That's right. It's insane when you think about it that way, right? When you think about it in a different way, and God brings us those messages to prompt us to do that. I'm sure when you sat down and said, I'm going to write this book, it was something that was taking you over. You couldn't fight it.
No.
Right? You had gotten to a point where I got to get this done. Like time is running out. This pain plan. And that's how God works. You feel it. You feel it. And if you fight it, you're fighting something bigger than you.
Yep. And it's a constant pull and tug at your heart. Like constantly, when you know when there's an assignment that you're procrastinating or you're putting it off, you know that because it constantly comes up. It's constantly like in here, like you feel it, almost like somebody is pulling at you. And I couldn't fight it anymore. Last October, I started writing because I was like, I can't keep delaying this. I have to do it. I have to write. The beautiful thing is once you start, it's almost like you have unleashed something now, right? Because you made a demand, because God's like, I got you, because this was always in you. And so all of a sudden I was just like writing. And I was just in this flow. And, you know, I'm talking about a book, but this could pertain to anything, you know, once you get started and you're doing the things that God is telling you to do, you're in his will, you can see where you're just going.
Yeah. And it's not just writing is just a small part of it. What you're unleashing is that entire purpose, yours and somebody else's. Right. Because how many people have you not already inspired and touched? Right.
Yeah.
Because of that. And I have to say, like, I'm writing my book, right? When I was writing my book, if it wasn't because I saw Emilio and Daniela Roman, who I didn't know at the time, okay? And they didn't do what they do as part of their purpose, right? And that was to inspire somebody like me through something like this, right? Because it was somebody's podcast that I saw them on, right? That prompted me to say, wait a minute, this is it. This is the thing that I'm looking for in order to change the world. Right. Yeah. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. All I knew was that I was mad that a little girl didn't have her match. Right. Yeah. I knew that. I knew that this little girl didn't have one, and what I was going to do to do different. If they hadn't done their part, and then they connected me with you. And if you didn't do your part to help me bring out what I needed to do, and in addition to that, inspire me to do it in Spanish, right? So that more people would have access to the story and the ability to save lives, right? Yeah. This whole thing would not have gone into motion. It would not have gone into motion. 100%. We all had to do our little part.
Yep. And I believe that. I love that you said that, because I really believe that on this earth, we are purposed to be answered prayer. Like we're purposed to, that's how God answers prayers different ways. He does miracles. He's sovereign, right? We don't limit him. He could do it any way he feels like. But
Right.
one main way he does it is through his people. And what's we're supposed to do, we're supposed to, that's the reason why it's so important, Marlene, to understand what your purpose is on this earth, because you are answered prayer. We are all answered prayer to somebody who needs something, who doesn't know something, or who, wants to do something and doesn't know how, right? And so that is how he uses us. And what I love, right, is that in using us, really, it glorifies him. Really, it points people back to him. And so, so Danielle, you talk about Danielle and Emilio, and I've always said this about them. I appreciate their heart for helping people share their stories, because they understand the power behind testimony. Like they understand the power behind when you talk about what happened with you and 9/11, all that. There's people who resonate with that. And they need that. They need to hear that. They need to read your story. They need to know that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones, right? And then, it might not be cancer. It might be something else that they feel this whole, I call it a holy discontent. That's what I call it. Whenever something inside you is bothering you and you're like, oh, right, I want to do something about it.
Yeah.
My word is holy discontent. Like but that's more than not, that's your purpose. That's part of your purpose. Whatever frustrates you, whatever makes you angry, whatever it moves you in that way where you're like, I wish I could do something. Guess what? You can, because that's part of your purpose. You just got to figure out how.
Yeah. And listen, and you don't know. You just never know. That was in the middle of the night. I was watching something mindless because I just wanted to do something mindless. And you never know when it's going to show up. You just never know when it's going to show up. Funny thing, back to what you were saying, if somebody said to you that this was going to happen, right? Would you take your time with it? And I will tell you that in 2011, someone prophesied that I would be doing what I was doing now.
Wow.
I was told that I would write a book, that I would be speaking, that people all over the world would know Isabella's name, that none of this was in vain, that God is with me, and that I will do this, and it won't be easy, but it will happen. Okay. And I turned around and was like, that person's nuts. Right. Like,
right.
Write a book. I'm a nurse. Right. I had just had Lorenzo. So I was a new mom, and the last thing on my mind was writing a book or anything like that. This woman was somebody, I was a childhood friend. She's a friend of mine, right? Who found me right after I had her on social media. She had been looking for me. She found me. And God has gifted her with the gift of sight and foresight, right? Yeah. So she's able to see a lot of things in people that they don't see for themselves. And I was one of them. I didn't see that for myself. I was still grieving. I was still grieving, right?
And that's real. And that's real. Like I sit here and I talk about, I'm grateful. I am always grateful and humbled by the opportunity to talk about my story, but I'm always very real with where you are in the moment. Right. And so I knew when I was going through my separation and divorce, I knew that eventually I was going to help other people. Right. Somebody was like, this is for other people, the way you're going through. I mean, because the way I walk through it, there's no way, Marlene, there's no way. Like people who know the story and the details are like, there's no way. Like, I would not have done that. I would have done this. I would have done that. I would have, right. And I would have been justified. But the way God graced me for that, I knew it was for other people. I knew I had to do it that way. But at the same time, I don't want to hear that. In the moment, I'm pissed. In the moment, I'm being lied to. I'm being played. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hurting. I'm emotionally hurt. I'm like, I don't want to hear that it's for other people. Right now, selfishly, I don't care about them. Right. But that's I mean, that's the part of
it. It's part of the process. And it took a long time. That was back then. And look how long it took. And actually, when it happened, I had forgotten that had even been said to me. I had forgotten completely until it was already here. And I went, wait a minute. This person told me this many years ago. Right. And I just dismissed it 100%.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't time. It wasn't time.
It just weren't ready to receive. Like I, again, it was like, I don't want to hear that right now because I'm hurting right now. But,
Yeah.
Again, the more that, and this is what I love about God is he will meet you where you are. He will always meet you where you are. He is a gentleman. He's not going to make you, because even years after, you still had a choice. Because he doesn't make us. His will is not automatic. It's absolute, meaning it's always going to be done, but it's not automatic. So he doesn't automatically say, you're going to do this. He always gives us the gift of choice. But look at what you've been able to do because you made that choice.
Yeah. And it was exactly what you say. Sometimes anger, and I say anger is not a horrible emotion. It actually is a change maker. Right? When you're angry enough, do something positive with that anger and do something different so you can have a different outcome. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was angry enough that I said, I'm done and I'm sick of hearing of stories like this when it's so simple to do something different. Right? Why is it as Latinos, we don't show up for ourselves? Right? And I'm going to say it and I'm going to be bold about it because I know. Right. Yeah. And I'm going to say, why don't we show up? That little girl had 20 people show up for her drive. Why? She should have had thousands of us show up for her. Yeah. Thousands of us.
I think
that didn't happen.
And it's a mindset thing. It really is a mindset thing. You have to have a different mindset. And I believe, right, there are those of us, and I'm just going to speak to the Latino culture. There are those of us, right, like you, like me, right, like so many that we know that, are in our circle, that are willing to go against the grain. Like we're going to go against it. We're going to go against the current. We're going to go against the norm. Right. And we're changing the little bits so that we can make a bigger difference and bringing awareness to what, normally Latinos who don't go to the doctor because they just think, what, I'm just going to go ahead and, I'm going to live. My abuelo, he lived till 90 something and that's just going to happen to me. No, like, you know what I mean? Or we think, hey, as long as this is my thing, right? As long as I have a house and I'm working this 9 to 5, I'm good. Right. And that was always my thing, right? It's like, I don't want to work on 9 to 5. Respect for anybody who does, but I don't. It's always the ones who are willing to break that cycle in our culture that is like, no, we got to bring awareness to this stuff. It matters. We can help each other out. And I know you and I talked about this all the time. There's always these fallacies in our minds, right? That we think something's going to happen if we do something, or if we give, bone marrow, what does that mean? We don't even understand it. And because we're uneducated or because we don't understand it, we just don't do it.
Right. It's all about education. Everything is about education. Everything is about bringing knowledge to someone, right? Yes. But how do you get the knowledge where they can receive it and they're not distrustful of the information that's being received? Because the distrust is part of it, right? Where's this information coming from? How can I trust you? Because we tend to not trust because of, rightly so, things that have been done in our past. And then we hear the story from our grandparents and our parents and everybody else about que le pasó a fulano de tal, right? Yeah. and because that happened to him, it's going to happen to all of us. So we have to, number one, educate ourselves so that we can live better, healthier lives. And that so that when we do go to the doctors and we do go to these places, that we arm ourselves with the ability to ask the right questions and to advocate for ourselves and not be afraid to do so.
Yeah.
All right. We live in a different time now. Times are different, right? We are the consumers. We are the ones that we can ask questions. We can do this for ourselves. I do it all the time, right? So part of that is teaching you how to do that, how to advocate for yourself. But let's give the information and let's meet people where they are so that we can bring them into the fold. Now, your pain plan. Okay. Who's this helping? Who's your avatar? Who is the person who needs this book?
So this book specifically is for men and women. I do address the men. It really is more for women, but I address the men in there as well, who are stuck. They are stuck in the emotional trauma and pain of relationship, of a marriage that is suffering or didn't work out. They're broken from, separation and divorce, and they're just stuck. Like they can't move on. I hear so many people, who they don't know how to heal, and they're bleeding all over other people, and they're calling themselves healed, but they haven't done any work. All they've done is let time go by. That's it. But they're still talking about what that person did in 2010 or 2015. You know what I'm saying? They're still talking about what happened in 2020. Like, we have to be able to move forward. So this book is really it's an emotional healing journey. It is a specific plan. It has steps in it. It has work in it, because one thing about me is I'm going to do the work, and we're going to do the work together. I am not afraid to work. And so, it really is for people to just get healed and be able to live their best life freely. Let the person who hurt you go. They don't get to define what happens to you next. They don't. And so that really is my heart with this book.
So we've now moved into writing other people's stories and, all the stuff that you do. And now you're a coach. Now you're coaching, right?
Yeah.
You're empowering other people. That's another phase in this journey of yours.
Yeah.
So tell me, when people go to this website, guys, it's scrolling on the bottom of the screen now, right? Ready Writer Services LLC. What are they going to find there?
So, right now you're going to find everything I do with books. because that has, it's funny. For the last six years. Yeah. For the last 6 years, that's what I've done. I've always helped people write their books and share their stories. And so that's really what you're going to find there. What I am, though, coming for 2025, which I'm super excited about, is a little bit more of courses. Teaching. I love teaching and coaching. That is my gift. I love it. I love to see people win. And so I am going to develop, I have been actually, I'm not going to say I am, because I actually have been developing different courses. And one of which is the coaching for healing. And so that's exciting. I'm super, super excited about that, because I'm working with a few people. And, I can't wait. So that's really what I'm doing. But on the website, you're going to get a lot of the books, because that's what I've done.
Whoop, whoop. So if you have a story that you feel is inside of you, if you're feeling the way that Giselle and I have described, that there is an unsettling feeling and you feel like you need to do something more, reach out to Giselle Quintanilla. I'm telling you, you will not be sorry. All right. Because I am always in debt to you, Giselle, for all the help that you gave me in developing my story.
Listen, I feel the same way, Marlene, because as much as people say like, oh, you helped me, but it's a level of trust, because you could have been like, no, because I don't know you. But you could have been like, I'm good. Right. And that's okay. That's okay. But I appreciate the trust that you had in me. And anytime somebody that I've worked with says that and says, I trust you, I trust what what your judgment is, and they allow me to work with them, to me, it's an honor. And so I remember the conversation you and I had about, your book, and just the humanity behind it. Because I always touch on the humanity. And so, I thank you for just saying yes, because your yes really helps so many people.
Right. Listen, you have to do it. When you know that you have to do it, then just do it. Yeah, and that was a journey, and there's plenty more books coming, right? that are going to be written. And there's a part 2 to that. There's one that I want to write with you about my mom. So we're going to be getting those books out in the very near future. So now I bring us to the question that I ask all my guests on this show, and that is, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is based on the fulfillment of purpose. Like everything, the Bible says that before we even stepped foot, right? God had already predestined us with tasks, with things that we have to do on this earth. And so everything I talk about, Marlene, is always about purpose. It always goes back to purpose, because it wasn't until I discovered my purpose that I started feeling fulfilled, and the joy that God brings, right? Because I did that. And so to me, success looks like a continuous journey towards your purpose and fulfilling God's purpose for your life. That's my definition of success.
Mhm.
Like when I'm in operating in my purpose, man, that's success to
That
me.
is success. Absolutely. And this is why we're here. Let's do our purpose. Let's get to the end, right? And let's
Yeah.
go home. Let's go home. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I loved our conversation. And I know everybody out there will too. And for my guest, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.